Well, good evening. I call the regular meeting of the Ames City Council for January 28th to order. Welcome, everybody. And we're going to move right into consent tonight. Does the council wish to pull any item from consent?
Mayor, I'd like to pull item 6.
Thank you. Anything else? Take a motion on approving consent agenda less item number 6.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Aye.
Aye.
Rollins.
Aye.
Poirier. Garten.
Aye.
Junk.
Aye.
Thank you. Gloria?
I did not pull this because I have a problem with it, but I understand that the organizers of the Campus Town Showdown are here, and I wanted to give them a chance to remind us what that's all about. We did hear from them last year, but
Thank you. They're not wearing cowboy boots or a cowboy hat, no? If you'd introduce yourself and please start.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. It's good to see many of familiar faces and some new ones tonight. But I'm Christian Callahan. I'm the founder and executive director of the Grand Drives LLC. We're really excited and we appreciate you guys reviewing the Campus Town Showdown special event permit. We are hopefully planning that this year for April 26th. So just a reminder about who we are and what our mission is. So the Grand Drives LLC, our mission is to bridge the gap between consumers and producers in the beef cattle industry. So we're not your typical cattle show. While we do start at the Hanson Ag Student Learning Center, our judges will select the top 6 of the market beef and the breeding heifers. And those top 12, with your approval, will make their way down to Campus Town Business District on Welch Avenue. What people can expect on Welch Avenue is we will transform the street to have a stage, a full arena. Of course, we'll lay down turf carpet for those cattle as well as they come in. But it's way more than just seeing cattle in Campus Town as well. It'll feature live music, a Western fashion show, and we'll have exhibitors competing to be crowned the grand champion from across the country coming to Ames. And then on top of that, we'll also interview them and welcome local businesses and vendors to also join throughout the street as well. There is some cash prizes involved for those winners, but really it's just a great event to welcome all the public. It's free to the public to come learn about the beef industry, but also have a lot of fun. And there's a little bit of everything for anyone who would like to come. So do you guys have any questions for me?
I don't think so.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, entertain a motion.
I would move approval.
Second.
Roll call.
Beatty Hansen.
Aye.
Rollins.
Aye.
Garten.
Aye.
Junk.
Aye.
Vetcher.
Aye.
Thank you. And before we move on to a public forum, John Joyner, would you stand up? He's not jumping up and down, but this is his last city council meeting after 32 years with the city. And he's done a fantastic job as Director of Public Works. And John, you'll be sorely missed. I'm sure you'll be replaced by someone who's equally, I'm sure that'll be the case, but we won't tell you that tonight. But on behalf of council, thank you for all you've done. It's been an absolute pleasure and joy working with you. You've done an admirable job leading that department. And we wish you all the best. And I'm sure you'll kind of be like Dwayne from finance. You'll show up once in a while and, come to events and eat cake and drink punch probably. So anyway, but enjoy your retirement. I'm sure we'll see you before you take off. But anyway, thank you for your service. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much.
He also gets to slip out as soon as I go to public forum because he's got nothing else on the agenda, I think. So, all right, move on to public forum. This is time we set aside for comments from the public on topics of city business, other than those listed on the agenda. And I do not have anybody that is signed electronically. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to address council? And if so, ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. All right, seeing none, we'll close public forum. We'll move on to item number 13. 2025 to 2030 capital improvement plan. While they are coming up and sitting down, just by way of review, council did review at our workshop last week. It took about 3.5 hours going through we call it the CIP, Capital Improvements Plan. And so there's no discussion from council tonight, but it is an opportunity to receive public input. So is there anybody from the audience that wants to provide public input on the Capital Improvement Plan? Kevin?
I thought we signed up electronically, so it must have been something, so go ahead.
It doesn't, just because I have nothing on my spreadsheet doesn't mean that, or my sheet is not working properly, which is quite possible. So, okay, all right. So we'll let Kevin start and then
Thank
we'll
you, Mayor.
let you go ahead. Thank you, Kevin.
Kevin Burke with Discover Ames, President and CEO. I had an opportunity to review the capital improvement plan for the next 5 years. And I just wanted to reiterate the need for a recreation center in the community. Even though it's not in this current plan, we would love to be able to see a feasibility study at least to at least start working towards what our needs are for a recreation center. With the closing of All Iowa Tech in town, that's probably going to happen later this year. That's going to be a loss of about $1.8 million of economic impact into the community from visitors, and that's visitors alone. But I know that the rec center is more than just a basketball facility, as All Iowa Tech is. We know that it's something that can service a lot of residents, if not all of our residents, in the way of a jogging track, basketball courts, pickleball courts, volleyball courts, you name it, as well as potential turf area and other amenities that could even have daycare in it as well. I think that we need to look at all the possibility, and that's why I talk about a feasibility study to really see what does the community want and what do we need. I think that just making it a recreation facility just for residents and not allowing outside tournaments is a little short-sighted, because the economic impact that does bring into the community by having a facility large enough to host events is significant, and it will certainly help in the operations of the facility. That's something that, as you know, with the aquatic center right now being built, it's expensive to run. And recreation center is too, but not quite as much as aquatics. But with having it large enough to accommodate outside groups, tournaments, events, we can generate revenue to help run the operations of it. So I just ask, as you look into the future for the capital improvement plan, that we start filtering in possibilities, particularly with the feasibility study.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
All right. Those that want, if you want to come up and introduce yourself, and if you could try limit your comments to 3 to 4 minutes maximum, please.
Twyla Anderson, 50678 180th Street in
Thank you.
Ames. I'd like to respond to a comment about funding the animal shelter that was made by Councilman Garten at a recent meeting. It was something to the effect of having a hard time talking about spending $4 million on cats and dogs after just discussing coming up with $12,000 for the homeless. And absolutely, funding for the homeless is extremely important, but that shouldn't negate the need to care for the animals that we've been entrusted to. Their lives are important also, and we can and should have compassion for both those groups. My impression was that Councilman Garten's comment was about struggling with the idea of supporting animals over people. So I wanted to point out a few ways that investing in a new shelter helps people as well as the cats and dogs. One group of people who benefit are the hundreds of volunteers. They spent over 7,500 hours last year at the shelter, and people don't do that unless it means a great deal to them. As a volunteer myself, I get a tremendous amount of personal satisfaction doing something I love while helping out the town I was born in. Excuse me. Some volunteers are animal science majors at Iowa State. The shelter provides invaluable experiences for those students beginning their careers in veterinary medicine. Those students are an important part of our city, and don't we want them to see a quality operation? Whatever people's reasons are for volunteering, Ames residents are benefiting from being there. And one example is the donors who recently gave $7,000 for one dog. So it matters to them. They're not just cats and dogs. Another example of people who benefit are the Ames families. Approximately 780 cats and dogs from our shelter found their forever homes last year. That's in 1 year. So 780 families' lives were enriched by a pet last year. So how many over the past few years, and more in the future, especially if we have space to accommodate those. And finally, in relation to all the mental health comments I've been reading from Ames citizens, happy animals can go a long way in helping with that. Particularly the children, many of whom are struggling right now. A pet gives them unconditional love, someone who's always there for them, who always listens without judgment. And if we get a new space, kids who don't get a chance to have a pet of their own can come in and interact with those puppies and kittens and just learn so much compassion and citizenship. Schools can bring struggling readers in to practice. It's great motivation to reading. But yeah, there's no way those things could happen in the building we're in now. So we need that new space. As a matter of fact, just this last week, a preteen girl who came in with her mom to help clean, she was bitten. And that was a direct result of not having a designated space that we needed. So, yeah. So I would just urge you to consider the benefits to the people of Ames as well as the animals.
Thank you.
I'm Kathy Parsons. I live over on Stanton Avenue in the old Crawford School, the Crawford condominiums. I am a 2-year volunteer at the shelter, and I really want to talk about something slightly different. My job, I retired 3 years ago from Iowa State, and I was responsible for the library safety and security. I did a lot of things with weather and making sure the building was safe for all those occupants. It now becomes a problem for me when I walk into any new room or new space. I immediately look, are there fireworks extinguishers? Where are the emergency exits? Where are the tornado shelters? I just have that built into my conscience now that I do that. When I walked into the shelter the first time 2 years ago, no PA system, no fireworks extinguishers. The tornado shelter is the hallway. So it's just, to me, in that scheme of things of safety, not only are the animals aren't going to be safe, but the people aren't safe in that building as well. And so that's one concern that I have. And that child care center would have all of those things because that is required by law for a child care center. And so it even has a basement, which I went, oh my God, a basement. I'd rather go to the basement for a tornado, if you don't mind. I don't want to sit in the hallway. So I really want to say that we really do need this shelter, and it is money well worth it. And I will speak on the mental health. Yes, it has helped my mental health to be a volunteer at the animal shelter. And I'm even fostering at-risk cats that have limited lifespans. So I'm basically hospicing them. So, but that's important to me, and I think it's important to the city of Ames as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Jennifer Hubbs. You guys heard from me recently and almost a year ago as well. I live over South Meadow 301 South 5th Street. I'm here with a group of volunteers and also community members. I've been a volunteer since January 23. I have actually put in over 1,000 hours myself. During that time, I've stepped up to try and help organize, to help purge, and just figure out how to make best use of the limited space that we have. Reality is what we have isn't working anymore, but you guys know this. Tonight, I'm here to address some of the concerns raised at the last meeting about the costs of the new shelter. While I understand that the initial costs proposed might seem significant, it's important to remember that the figures in the CIP are estimates and not fixed amounts. If adjustments or additional costs arise, I hope that the city will approve them to ensure that the project is done right. We've waited years for this shelter, and it's critical that we build a facility that not only meets today's needs, but allows for growth. If we cut corners now, we'll likely be back in a few years asking for an expansion, which would cost even more. Investing in a properly designed shelter now is the most fiscally responsible choice. The current facility is outdated and unsafe, no smoke detectors, water sprinklers, temporary fixes like trailers to separate our strays from the adoptable cats just aren't enough anymore. And we don't want to see any more short-term Band-Aid solutions in the new shelter. We need a facility that will last. The resident satisfaction survey in 2024 shows that the Ames residents want this. Animal shelter and animal control services receive the highest percentage of support for increased funding of any city service, with 35% of respondents advocating for more. This project is not just about meeting the needs of the animals, it's about responding to what the people of Ames have clearly said is important to them. I urge the council to consider the resident satisfaction survey and ensure that the shelter is designed to meet future needs. Scaling back now will likely lead to higher costs and greater challenges down the line, and Ames deserves a shelter that reflects the values of its community. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
Hi, my name is Tommy Lenz, 2154 Hawthorne Court Drive, and thank you for having me here today. I'm a grad student at Iowa State, and some of the recent threats from the new federal administration about academia and immigrants worry me. As an academic, I fear for my job prospects, but more importantly, I fear
Excuse
for
me. Tell you what, maybe you didn't understand. This is a comments on the capital improvement plan. What I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and let you go ahead and speak. This should be under public forum. This is not about capital improvement. This is about other things, right?
Yeah.
But we certainly allow time for that. So I'll just go ahead. You can go ahead and proceed.
Okay.
But don't be nervous. That's fine. But I just want to make clear that this is not regarding the projects we're contemplating, right?
No.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Tommy.
Sorry.
No problem at all. And appreciate you coming. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so a lot of my colleagues are on visas. Like my boss wasn't born in the U.S. My closest friends who made me feel welcome when I come to campus are worried about being deported, or they can't go home because they're worried that they can't get back into the country. So I guess that kind of left me like frustrated and feel a little powerless. I'm sure lots of other people in Ames probably feel similar about those kinds of things. So I know there's only so much that the city can do about national issues, but I guess kind of an open-ended question I have for you is what can Ames do to protect our local students, friends and families, and support them? And I guess what can I do as a student to help?
Thank you. Anybody else want to address council on the CIP?
I want to tell them how we respond.
All right, we'll close public feedback. Rowan?
I was just going to mention, do you want to tell the person for public forum when and how we respond to that? Or?
Yeah, well, we during public forum, we don't really have an interchange. We took your question, we understand your questions, and it's been a question we've received from some people via email as well too. Probably during council comments would probably be something that we might touch on, but no action can be taken. But we do appreciate you bringing that up. And I think I speak on behalf of council. We're also aware of that challenge as well too. So we had public input regarding the rec center and animal shelter. Is it possible just to get a quick update, maybe from Brian or just from you, where we stand? Because those projects are in planning and different evaluation stages. Maybe just to kind of give, because people came and spoke on it. So
you'll see in the CIP on page 30, we do for the first time, we prioritized the animal shelter relocation as the #1 project of the 4 you were contemplating. So that's on page 30. It lays out potential funding that we're looking for, probably about $1.5 million in donations, but that's about 1/3 of the total project cost. The city, I'm recommending the city put in about 2/3 of the cost. So we're actually working with a consultant right now to work on an existing building. I think that'll be more cost effective. It's approximately 12,000 square feet.
This is not the existing building, but an
An
existing
existing
that
building.
that is in
Not
Ames.
these, yeah, okay. That's right, I'm sorry. So we're pretty excited about it, but we'll work with the consultant to see if we can develop the facilities we need. It does have a lot of room for expansion too, even though I agree, the first time around, we want to do as well as possible, but we always have to deal with this issue about do we overbuild or not? So we're certainly going to expand from where we are, but have the capability to expand in the future for many, many years. You'll see my budget in terms of the rec center. When it comes out, I'm recommending, you'll see this Friday. Yeah, I think Friday. I'm recommending $100,000 to do a feasibility study for a recreation center. You've already allocated our money for conceptual design or conceptual estimates for a relocation of fire station number 2, and also developing the new Ontario Park. You will have to give us some direction on the philosophy behind the rec center, because it's differentiated. It's different if you want to build a rec center like they have in Nevada versus the one they have in Norwalk, okay? Because it's geared to doing different things. So we want to get as much input as possible and see what your goal is of the facility itself. But we do have money in there to do a feasibility study that will handle both the cost estimates to operate as well as maybe suggestions for revenue. So that you'll see that in the budget. So
And we're anticipating a report back from the consultant on the a different but existing building for animal shelter in the next 30 days. Is that correct?
yes,
And this is,
that's the rec center.
no,
I'm sorry.
on the animal shelter still. So
Yes.
this is shown in fiscal year 25, 26, which what does that mean in the CIP then? That it's a high priority and it's going to proceed if council votes on it.
In fact, we'll ask you to move ahead, and we have was it 90-day, Brian, purchase option? So we might have to purchase the land ahead of the time before we actually have the design done. So we want to move quickly as possible to get this done. We don't want to waste a lot of time.
Yeah, what we're looking for from the design team right now is essentially a very basic response as to whether this proposed building is a yes or a no for being feasible to convert into an animal shelter facility.
What if the answer is no?
If the answer is no, that it would be inordinately expensive compared to the proposed budget that we have for the facility, then
That doesn't stop the project though from working forward though. It's
Right.
different, right?
then we'd be looking to have the council not exercise the option to purchase that property. And instead, we would then engage the consultant to prepare cost estimates and designs for a purpose-built animal shelter facility on property already owned by the city. And we've identified the property just to the east of the existing water plant as a potential site for that. And we've done some preliminary engineering work on it. So that's essentially our fallback. Now, that path has a lot of hurdles in its place. The biggest one is timing, because we're limited in the number of times per year that we can go for a bond referendum. It has to be at the general election in November. So there'd be a delay until that point before we would be able to determine whether there'd be funding sufficient to proceed with the project. And then beyond that, we would then need to go into developing design drawings and constructing the project. That would be several years longer, likely, than if we are able to successfully convert the facility on Dayton Avenue into an animal shelter facility. So that's why we're excited about the prospect of this daycare facility on Dayton. And we believe that there's a good prospect that we can find a range of costs from the design team that will fit our needs for the services to be provided there, as well as the budget that the council is going to allocate towards it.
Thank you. you just shared the council will vote on the CIP projects when?
Yeah, the wrap-up session, well, budget wrap-up on February 12th, when you go over all your final decisions, including asset, CODA, outside funding requests, the budget itself, and then the CIP.
I think the wrap-up meeting is.
11, excuse me.
Yeah.
Excuse me. That's Tuesday, right?
So, yeah,
How quickly time flies.
the second Tuesday in February.
Okay, excuse me. It's 11th.
All right. Any closing comments, Corey or Nancy? All right. Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to item number 14, resolution authorizing city staff to establish 2 City of Ames climate action grant programs.
So while
I was surprised.
I'll kick us off
Tell 'em.
by saying that in the past year, we have brought forward a variety of items related to how the city can and is working towards reducing its greenhouse gas emissions, from purchasing electric vehicles to retrofitting our buildings. And as an organization, really thanks to your leadership, we've made really great strides. Last week, we were awarded 6 gold status certificates from the Resilient Iowa communities. And so really, I think that's a testament to the work that we're doing here and being at the forefront of putting into place some really good sustainable practices. Our actions alone, though, are only one part of the whole story. And so it's really going to take actions from various community members and partners to achieve our goals that are outlined in the Climate Action Plan. And so tonight we're bringing forward a proposal to pilot some climate action grants that are designed to really encourage the community partners and members to take sustainable actions as well. And as you know, no one agency is solely responsible for reducing all greenhouse gas emissions. And so likewise, there's really no silver bullet in doing this as well. So the way that we've structured our climate action grants are in a fashion where it takes into account that a variety of actions are needed and a variety of partners are needed to really make sustainable solutions have a lasting impact. So with that, I'll turn it to Nolan to talk through our climate action grant proposals.
Thank you, Bob. Good evening, Council. So as she stated, this is kind of born out of the community-wide aspect of the Climate Action Plan. It's going to take all of us working together to reach our ambitious goals. So we're proposing this program to support projects, to partner with local small businesses and nonprofit organizations to take climate action in the community. So we have the scope set where it's broad enough to, projects that align with the Climate Action Plan, but they need to have really that meaningful impact, that broad impact on the community to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, increase resiliency. We'll see some cost savings projects too. So we're proposing to fund this program out of the Council's Sustainability Priorities Fund that was set aside for implementation of the Climate Action Plan. And we're requesting that $70,000 be allocated for the program to run for 1 year. At that time, we would come back and report on the impact that the program has had and seek your guidance on how to proceed from there. So after researching similar municipal grant programs and putting some thought into our community-specific needs here in Ames, we're proposing that 2 grant programs. So the first being a community climate grant. So as I said, projects must align with the city sustainability goals. That's kind of the main requirements. And then obviously they must take place within Ames and benefit to Ames residents. So awards would be up to $10,000, requiring a partial cost match. And that's so the awardees would feel ownership for the projects and that the city could leverage, some other private dollars to also be invested into these initiatives. So we'd split up to run 2 grant cycles over the next year. So that would be to kind of spread out the administrative load to run the program. So we would limit each cycle to up to 5 projects. So that would be in April and October of this year. And then upon award, awardees would have 1 year to complete their projects. So applications for this program would be on a competitive basis. So I'll go in a little bit more into the scoring criteria here on the next slide. But we're looking for, how much can you align with our city goals that are communicated and are out there? Looking for sustained benefits to as many people in Ames as possible. So not just do the project and be done, something that can be around for a long time and continue to pay dividends to the organization and then to the broader community as well. And then looking for meaningful outcomes and impacts from the project, measurable impacts. How many kilowatt hours can you save, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, things that we can point to and say, here's the impact that this project had. And then obviously a demonstrated need for funding. So I'm asking, why do you need additional funding to make this project happen? We're looking for projects that otherwise may not have happened without the additional funding support. And then obviously a reasonable scope and an achievable scope and budget. And then following the project, we're requiring a final report. So this would document the outcomes and impacts. And we would have, set aside requirements for this final report. And then once we receive the final report and agree to what's in there and verify receipts, then only then would reimbursement be issued. So the funds would be awarded on a reimbursement basis. So a little bit more into the scoring criteria. So the two highest scored items are meaningfully advances and aligns with our program goals. So that's kind of our North Star, aligning with the climate action plan, aligning with our sustainability goals. That's kind of the whole point of the program. And then in addition to that, those sustained beneficial impacts that I mentioned. So something that's going to be around for a long time. Solar panels would be a good example that will continue to provide cost savings for 20, 30 years into the future. And then can be modeled by others too. These projects, we will put a stamp on it that says, this project was done in partnership with the city of Ames, and we would use those projects for education and outreach into the community so that we can inspire other organizations to also take action so that the projects could be modeled by others. And then I mentioned some of those other criteria here, the demonstrated need for funding, making sure that the scope and budget are feasible and achievable. So that's our evaluation criteria. And then I'll go into a few examples. So these are from the city of Iowa City, who has ran a similar program for a number of years. So a few pictures here. There was an apartment complex where the tenants got together and installed native prairie around the apartment building. There was quite a few different nonprofits and small businesses that used the program for retrofitting windows, doors, heat pumps, solar panels, this sustainable technologies that will provide those organizations with cost savings throughout the lifetime of those equipment. And then another category of projects that we could see are workshops and education and outreach activities. So events or outreach campaigns focused on sustainable issues such as recycling or active public transportation in those areas. Right, and then the other program being proposed is the youth mini grant. So again, these would need to align with city sustainability goals and include education and outreach as part of it. So these would be for high school or younger students, high school or younger, with an adult sponsor on the project. So this could be a class and the teacher could sponsor, or a parent or guardian, with awards up to $500. So we would review these on a rolling basis. We wouldn't have deadlines for these ones. You could submit a project whenever. And then with a little bit tighter timeline of 6 months to complete the project upon award. So similar set of criteria, a little bit of a simplified application and review evaluation process just due to the scope of the grants, but very similar evaluation criteria. And then a similar process in that the final report, receipts, and then you would receive the award on a reimbursement basis. So a little bit different scope with the types of projects, really emphasizing the outreach and education as opposed to the impact, just due to the scope, the size of the grants. We want to get our youth involved in climate action and then share those success stories across the community as well. All right, so yeah, we feel because of the broad community-wide benefits of this program, staff recommends alternative one, which would be to approve the program. And we're here to take comments, receive your feedback, and can still be incorporated into the program, and of course, answer any questions.
Thanks, Nolan. Questions, comments?
Do we have a model for how we assess a 20% in-kind services cost match?
Yeah, there is a standard nationwide that values volunteer work at about $30 per hour. So that's how we would value volunteer hours.
So it won't matter what kind of work as long as it's something on the project.
Correct, and as long as they're not paid staff from the organization that are completing those, it needs to be volunteer hours.
And the youth mini grant, this is something that classes could take advantage of as well.
Yes, yeah, we would love to see a collaborative project with a classroom, with the teacher being the sponsor adult.
Other questions? All right, open up public feedback. Is there anyone that wants to address council on this topic tonight? Seeing none, we'll close public input.
So just a couple of follow-ups. Steve, could you clarify the source of these funds?
Well, one will be a grant. We're applying for a grant, outside grant. The $70,000 is, Nolan said, will come from your council priorities. We've set aside money for sustainability projects in last year's budget for general fund savings. So that'll come from there. And then we're going to apply for grants for the other part of the program, right?
And so these are dollars that have already been budgeted for Climate Matters.
We did put a pot of money together for that purpose for you.
Right. So these aren't dollars. If the council wants to, we could continue this program in the next budget, but these are coming from dollars that have already been allocated. Just want to make sure I'm saying that correctly.
That's correct.
Okay.
As long as they last, I mean.
Correct. Yep. I wanted to just take a second, Pa and Nolan, to thank you for the thoughtfulness of this and looking at best practices. And I appreciate the fact that the criteria are looking at a cost benefit perspective. And so we're going to evaluate these and fund the ones that have merit. I received some feedback on Facebook regarding this matter that I found disconcerting. In that the premise that the poster was making was that this kind of program is evidence of why the legislature should constrain cities in their spending via property taxes. And I take the position it's quite the contrary. This is the kind of program that is very thoughtfully crafted and tailored, and a lot of thought went into this, that gives us the flexibility to try something that we think is valuable to consider. And the idea that legislators in Des Moines would tell us in Ames how to spend dollars like this to represent what we spent hours and hours gauging public input on our climate priorities and our climate action plan. I want to suggest that this actually makes the case for home rule. This kind of innovation makes the case for why we would want to allow cities to innovate. So I appreciate this very much. And for those that are watching and paying attention, this is the benefit of having cities having creativity and thoughtfulness with respect to how they meet the needs of their community.
Thank you. All right, entertain a motion.
I'll move alternative one.
Which
Second.
is approving the $70,000.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, roll call.
Aye.
Aye.
Drunk. Aye. Betcher.
Aye.
Lady Hansen.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, move on to item number 15, resolution approving city staff to apply for a 2025-2026 Green Isle AmeriCorps host site status.
All right, so before you organize a program to consider applying for host site status for the Green Iowa AmeriCorps program. So this is a statewide community service program that's been around for a number of years here in Iowa. There are about 20 host sites in Iowa. These are local governments, nonprofits, and school districts that can host Green Iowa AmeriCorps members. And their focus is environmental resiliency and sustainability efforts. So they can engage in a number of activities ranging from energy efficiency to nature conservation, waste reduction, and climate action planning. So the cost for this service is $10,000 annually, in addition to any supplies or transportation technology that the members need. So this would involve 2 Green Iowa AmeriCorps members. And as a host site, we would develop a host site specific scope and job description for these members. And then we would go through a standard hiring process with interviews, and the city would have the final determination on who the members would be that we bring in. And we would do that in partnership with Green Iowa AmeriCorps. So members commit to serving 11-month terms. So this would be from September to August each year. And they would work 3/4 time. So that would be about 26 to 28 hours per week. So the scope that we're proposing for these members are primarily energy efficiency services, because we feel that's a need here in the community. So this program would be free and open to all Ames residents. The members would be trained by Green Iowa AmeriCorps and by the Building Performance Institute to perform energy audits and weatherization services. So we would equip them with supplies like LED light bulbs, caulking, weather stripping, low flow sink aerators, and some of these quick and easy direct install measures that could save a lot of money on utility bills for our residents. So based on conducting an energy audit, they would identify what the needs are for that home, and then direct install with supplies if possible, and then advise the resident on if there are additional work that's needed, similar to a standard energy audit. So through this program, it would be our goal to cover 70 homes per year here in Ames. And then in addition to the energy efficiency services, the members could engage in any number of sustainability activities, like I mentioned. Rummage Rampage would be a good example that they could help out with education and outreach events and other sustainability activities as well. And I believe Don.
Source of funding, you might have questions. Tim asked for the source of funding on this program.
Yeah, we have Don with Electric Service. Let's pick them up. And talk about the benefits to our electric utility as well.
Yeah. So within the electric utility budget, we have $10,000 set aside for weatherization each year. So that typically is used in affordable housing places where light bulbs, weather stripping, anything that would help to tighten up those homes. So electric, even though this is a citywide project, we won't just hold it to Ames Electric customers, but we do have $10,000 set aside specifically to help out for this type of project. You want me to go on with, some of the benefits. The reason why we're looking at this, obviously, is it's typically in some of our older homes where they're not as efficient. And any place where you can come in and believe it or not, we're still finding incandescent light bulbs in some of the homes that we've been in. We can get out there and install LED lighting, which is a huge low-cost way of saving our customers energy and money by having AmeriCorps staff or somebody in the home and can literally change light bulbs for people. They're surprised at how efficient and how bright they are. Beyond that, definitely helps us in the summer by having a more airtight home. Less is used for heating and cooling. Summer benefits us definitely in the summertime. So electric is very much in support of this. This is one of the goals that we've always wanted to work on. Years ago, we used to have church groups that would go into affordable housing and do this. Here, AmeriCorps is kind enough to, or Nolan and AmeriCorps are setting up to have staff that can basically then go into these homes and do the things that normally aren't getting done.
Thank you. Questions?
So could you clarify, with AmeriCorps, is there any kind of matching dollars that we need to put towards this position? I was a little unclear on that.
The $10,000 fee is the matching requirement.
Okay. And I don't remember us having an AmeriCorps or position with the city before. Is that something we've done in the past?
No, we haven't, but I think both Paul and Nolan have experience with a prior job. Is that correct?
I did serve as an AmeriCorps member in college.
You were one of them.
Oh, wow. That's cool. This is a terrific program. And I love the idea, the principles of AmeriCorps and encouraging public service with young people and giving them an opportunity. My only comment is, in addition to the things that are listed, I hope that we're able to fill this position and that we're able to give them a very broad understanding of what we're doing as a community. Ames is a very robust place to study and to learn. And so I'm excited for this list, but I hope that we give them a wide range of opportunities, maybe partnering with companies that have a commitment to this kind of work and letting them see what is being done broadly across the community. But it's a terrific idea, very supportive.
Any other questions or comments? Entertain motion.
I would move.
Go ahead.
I would move that we authorize an application to be a host site for the Green Iowa AmeriCorps program for 2 Green Iowa AmeriCorps members.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Roll call.
Aye.
Aye. Betcher.
Aye.
Beatty Hansen.
Aye.
Rollins.
Aye.
Thank you. I'll move on to item number 16, resolution authorizing city staff to participate in the Energy Ready suite of programs.
All right, thank you. Shifting gears here. So Energy Ready is a technical assistance and recognition program administered by the Department of Energy and many other nationally recognized reputable organizations focused on scaling deployment of sustainable technologies such as solar and electric vehicle charging. So the two programs are structured the exact same. SolSmart is concerned with solar and Charging Smart is concerned with electric vehicle charging. So the purpose of the programs are to reduce the soft costs of installing these technologies. So when you, for example, install solar panels on your home, you pay for the physical solar panels, and then you also pay for the soft costs. And those, the soft costs within the city's purview include inspections, zoning, permitting, and interconnection. So these processes have an impact on the ease of installation and the cost of installation for solar and electric vehicle charging. So the technical assistance from this program would help us identify best practices, ways to improve our programs and policies and procedures. And then there's a recognition aspect of the program as well. So they have a pretty robust scoring criteria, and then they designate communities as bronze, silver, or gold. And then SolSmart has a platinum category as well. So the city does have some experience with SolSmart. So in 2017, the city engaged with the SolSmart team and received silver designation. And after a second look at the program guide and the progress that we've made over the last few years, SolSmart Gold is achievable for us. So we're proposing to re-engage with SolSmart and go for gold. And then Charging Smart is a new program. It would be new to Ames. It is a new program that just launched last year, and we would kick off that engagement with a commitment letter that's attached to the council action form. Then it would involve personal engagement with the Charging Smart staff so they could understand our programs and policies around electric vehicle charging, help us identify best practices, industry trends, and then receive either a bronze, silver, or gold designation for our efforts thus far. And this program is at no cost. So for those reasons, yeah, we recommend alternative one, which would be to approve the program.
Questions or comments? Entertain a motion.
Move alternative 1.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Drunk. Aye. Betcher.
Aye.
Beatty Hansen.
Aye.
Rollins.
Aye.
Garten.
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks, Nolan. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Move on. Item number 17, Fitch Family Indoor Aquatic Center monthly update.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. So just give a quick update. Just a few notes in the memo that was sent to you. And just one of the things that we did have in there is change orders. And just right now, we're sitting at about 1.4% of the overall construction budget has been used for change orders. It's about, I think, $254,000 roughly. And that's out of the $2.1 million that we have for contingency. So do have, again, Troy Turner with Story Construction, who's our construction manager, and then also Brad Rodenberg, who's architect on the project. So I'm going to turn it over to them and let them kind of give you an update.
Good evening. So Keith is going to put some photographs up of the job site, and pictures worth a million words. So we'll use that as our primary tool tonight.
Drum roll. Yeah, drum roll. Little technical difficulty.
Must have been taken at night.
Bigger toolbox. That's your primary
Well,
tool.
the interesting thing about this project is it is high visibility. So you've all
Yes.
driven by there and seen today probably what
There we
it
go.
looks like.
Thanks, Susan.
So what we'll talk about first is the larger rectangle, the taller rectangle. That's the natatorium, or the area that the three pool basins will be in. So in the last 2 months, work that's gone on is precast concrete has been set, structural steel has been set, joists have been set. And then you see a crew up working on the steel roof decking. So that's been going on. Where that's headed in the next 3 months is that steel deck will get finished across the building, and that'll make available then the roofing operation to take place. One thing in this photograph that's a little hard to see, that natatorium rectangle is actually broken up into 2 rooms. And so what we'll concentrate on as the steel deck gets done and the roof going on is we'll work up in the ceiling space, putting in things such as electrical conduit, ductwork, fire sprinkler piping, and painting. And we'll concentrate first on the wellness room, which is in the northeast corner or northwest corner of that space. So that ceiling work will get started here during the month of February. And it'll continue through April as we move out into what has now been coined on site as the big room being where the lap pool is and the recreation pool. The wellness pool itself will start construction in March. So the job's really getting to a kind of a turning point to where it's all been about structure so far. And we're close to having structure complete to where now we can get inside and get into other trades. So we're really kind of at that turning point in the natatorium. And then out in the big room, the lap pool is scheduled to start in April. So once the wellness pool gets started and has a little bit of time behind it, the big room should be available for that lap pool to get started. And that lap pool goes on the far east side of that space. So there's be a pool basin going on east side, west side, and the center for a while be used kind of like lay down and equipment staging. And then on the north side of the building, it's what we've called the non-natatorium space. So it's all the space outside of the natatorium. And it encompasses that north side that you can see some precast concrete panels that have been erected. A little bit of structural steel has been erected in this photo. But if you were to drive by there today, you would start to see that there's work going out to the east side. And that east side will be primarily the multi-purpose room areas and the walking area. One thing I'll point out, clear at the west end of that non-natatorium space, you see kind of a white roofing material. Yeah, it shows up better in that photo. So this spot out here, that's the pool mechanical room. So a lot of pumps, piping, filters, disinfection, that sort of thing goes in part of that. And then the far north end of that is the building's electrical and mechanical room, where the electrical service will come in, be distributed throughout the building. And then mechanical systems, particularly the chiller, will be in that. Looking forward in that space, so we look to have the structure for that non-natatorium area complete in March. And then roofing will be going on through March and April. So as we look ahead, we're looking at having the entire building roof on, watertight, come the month of April. So that's a big milestone in the construction world, so that when you have weather days, it just doesn't impact the site like it does when you're outside slogging in the mud. Another thing that'll be happening in the non-natatorium space is we've previously installed as many under slab utilities as we felt comfortable with, knowing that cranes need to still get in there and equipment needs to get in there. So some of the buried utilities have been installed in that non-natatorium space, but as that structure gets completed, crews will come in and finish out, particularly underground electrical conduit and sanitary waste and vent piping. And then that'll ultimately kick off the ability to pour concrete slabs in there. Keith, you can probably go through a few other photos here. Yeah. This is standing in the natatorium space looking south towards Lincoln Way. Some folks might be wondering, well, what eventually goes in those triangular spaces? So those will ultimately get filled in with aluminum and glass. That aluminum and glass will go in more towards the end of the project for two reasons. One, we want to save, we might need it for access someday, so we don't want to prohibit access through there. But then there's also, we want that aluminum glass to not get damaged through construction. So we'll wait to do that until it's more appropriate. And then in the ceiling, you can see some of the joists. Those joists span over 90 feet. So those are pretty big steel joists. Yeah, that's a really neat picture there. One thing you'll see, so a lot of temporary pipe braces. So while the structure is being erected, those are pipe braces to keep it upright during weather events. Once the steel deck is complete on this space and has been inspected structurally, all those pipe braces will get out of the way, and that obstacle will be removed so the work can get started in the ceiling space.
That's the last one.
All right, that's it. And then one thing I would say, so everybody can see the work going on. There's a lot of work that happens behind the scenes. One of the things that's been happening behind the scenes is building envelope and pre-installation meetings. So we've had pre-installation meetings lately for the roofing process that's getting ready to start, where building envelope consultant and the contractors and ourselves sit down, talk through the installation, what are the quality requirements, and then as that roofing gets started, that building envelope consultant will be there to see that it's being installed per plans and specifications as well. And then we've also had pre-installation meetings for sealants. So precast panels, have a approximately 1-inch gap between them, and that gets sealed in. And mock-ups have been done on that recently, and the sealant work is ongoing. That's what I've got for tonight. Brad, do you have anything to add tonight?
I don't really. It's gratifying, obviously, to see it come out of the ground after years of work and so many hours from city staff. So it's part we enjoy greatly.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, as a construction owner, as you guys are, you deal with projects a long time. Like as a constructor, we don't show up until there's like construction. And Brad and I were just talking about this tonight, where as a designer or a construction owner, you guys have a long runway. So it's got to be gratifying to see all that work finally coming to fruition, and looking forward to the residents of Ames and Story County being able to use this. It's got to be very exciting. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Questions?
So the material says the construction substantial completion date is November 15th. Do you feel like where we are so far is on schedule for where we were targeting?
Yeah, I would say the precast concrete wall panels were available later than we wanted them to be. And so we're currently working on how do we make up some of that time. So one of the conversations we've been having a lot lately is with the pool contractor. The idea was to only work on one pool basin at a time. But as you've heard tonight, we're going to work on at least 2 at a time to try and shrink the time that we're in that natatorium.
And just to double back on something we've talked about in the past.
Yeah.
So in that process of digging the basins with those, then that's going to potentially create some pressure for underground water. The fact that we would be doing 2 of those at once, that's something that you guys are taking into your calculus in terms of the effect of that pressure. That
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? We're concerned about the potential chemicals.
Yeah, the soil contamination that's there.
So
Yeah.
does that change the calculus by doing 2 at once?
It does not.
Okay.
And, you know, I'd say fortunately, we've done a lot of excavating on the site. We've done the deepest excavation on the site already, and so far have yielded no contaminated soils. And so we've been testing those as we excavate and taking samples of those. Haven't found any. That's really encouraging, since we've done the deepest excavation on the site so far. And B, we got up into the north side of the site, more in the northwest corner, where I was a little bit concerned. Didn't find anything there. I doubt we would find anything in the pool basins as shallow as they are. Even the deep end is kind of deep, but in the construction world, it's really not that deep. We were much deeper on this site already. And then this summer, we'll start getting into site work and finishing out the storm sewer piping. And that starts to get up into that north part of the parking lot area. That would be the last thing I would look at, where we're starting to get close to it again here. But again, that excavation isn't quite as deep. So knock on wood, we're not going to find any. And so far we haven't.
That's great. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And just I would add, just as a reminder, in that northeast corner, a lot of the contamination that they found when Impact 7G was doing it was in that kind of that 8-foot below ground area, and the excavation isn't going to get that deep in that corner. So
No.
So we've been very blessed with not seeing any contamination, and let's hope that continues.
Yep. Thanks.
So when you say contamination, you mean you any groundwater? You've kind of tested the groundwater, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, honestly, as dry as it's been, we've found very little groundwater. What we've been sampling is the soil itself. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very encouraging. We were concerned that the groundwater might
Yeah,
start flowing through and causing a real issue. So
yeah, and honestly, I've looked at a lot of geotechnical reports in my lifetime. This was one of the more confusing ones of, are we going to hit groundwater or not? Because There's sand on the site, there's clay on the site, and how are they all commingled really has a lot to do with how the groundwater flows. Luckily, we haven't really found much groundwater.
Are there any critical path items that you're keeping you up at night in terms of things that might say, oops, this is going to slow us down or not?
Well, getting through the structure, that'll be a milestone. Yeah.
Like material delivery or
Yeah,
mechanical issues?
Right
or-
now, no. Material deliveries are coming as needed. We actually have some HVAC equipment that's scheduled to deliver in April. So right now, with what I know, material delivery looks good.
That's encouraging.
We're about 90% through reviewing all submittals and things like that, right?
So one thing with the critical path, Troy, can you talk maybe about the electrical? Because I know council does hear from electric. Sometimes electric equipment is a long time coming, but some of that equipment is already on site or
Yeah.
yep. Right?
Yep. Yeah. So even on the electrical gear side, we're feeling like that looks good for delivery. That's one advantage of a brand new build. You've got some runway to build a structure before you ever need electrical versus a renovation where you might need that electrical gear right now. So right now we feel like the electrical side of things looks good as well.
Great. Any other questions? Well, thank you both for coming. Appreciate the update and look forward to seeing you in a few months.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Watch
you.
the progress as you drive by.
Oh, it's hard not to watch it.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
You too.
All right, move on. Number 18, approving downtown facade grant program updates. Kelly?
Benjamin will give the overview of this.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Back in the fall, council had directed staff to prepare updated documentation for the changes to the facade grant program, the downtown facade grant program. Those changes, the two big moves were allowing for or expanding eligibility for all facades of a building, and previously only those facades that were adjacent to a public right-of-way were eligible, and allowing for limited maintenance. For the other facades that are now eligible, those include alleys, facades facing alleys, and facades facing the municipal parking lot to the south. There are no new design guidelines, but the existing downtown design guidelines will be applied to those buildings. Priority will be given within those grants to those facades that are the most visible. And with the maintenance grant, those are specifically the maintenance is for exterior walls, for foundations, and for roofs. And the buildings that are eligible for those two, the other facades and for the maintenance, are those facades that are contributing resources to the downtown Ames National Register Historic District.
So with this packet, you have some attachments depicting the updated program guidelines, the timing for the two programs. And so we're just looking for council approval of the documentation and how we've outlined the program for administration, which fundamentally will be really 2 rounds, a fall round for traditional new grants, and then the spring round will be new grants plus additional grants and new maintenance grants that haven't been around before. So if there's any questions.
So I'll ask a question. So have we had any feedback from stakeholders that would be impacted by these changes?
Back in September, we reached out specifically to Scott Mormon, who had sent the letter. So we went through a lot of this back at that point in time. We did talk to the Main Street director last week, Travis, and he provided some feedback to us that we incorporated into the administration of the program. But there hasn't been any other directed outreach since September when council directed this to be done.
Okay, thanks.
This isn't so much a question as just maybe a reminder to council, but also staff. I think back in September, what we said was, we'll give this a try and see how things go. And maybe we determine later that we don't do 2 rounds anymore, that instead we look at a scoring system or something else, but that it didn't happen now because we've got that downtown master planning going on. And so I'm happy to see what we've got at this point, but I also want to make sure that we're considering, I know Tim was concerned about how much money we might be putting into this program, and I had concerns about that timing issue with the submissions, but I'm happy with what we've got at this point.
Just to touch on that, I think our understanding as staff, which maybe not as embodied completely in the words of the program document, this upcoming spring round, which will be the first maintenance opportunity and also the first rear facade opportunity. I think the intent was to be pretty open about accepting applications, and that's why we also updated the scoring priorities so that we could come back. If there happen to be a lot of applications, then you can kind of see how they stack up in terms of accomplishments of the priorities of the program. I think the attachment, which is the scoring priorities, that update, I think it's probably the most important of the documents that are attached because I think it articulates the vision of the program the best. And I think I hope we capture the intent of the program. So when it does come back to you, you'll say, yep, this is meeting those intent, or it's partially meeting that intent. And you'll be able to rank these projects better than maybe in the past.
Other questions?
How are we going to communicate this to property owners who might have thought about this grant is only dealing with facades and now it's being expanded? If we're going to do this, I want to see it utilized and gauge the level of public interest. How do we do that effectively?
I think, especially for the spring, the common practice is to send a postcard out because it's a routine program. It's not that anymore at this point. So I think we have new information, new applications. We're trying to make it clear there's new opportunities here. And I'm sure that Benjamin is also, because I'm telling him right now, he's going to also offer to be available to come in and talk as like a program outreach kind of effort, not just rely on the postcard. So we'll probably do both of those things this time. But I think the documentation will be a lot different, trying to say there's new things that you can do.
Yep, that's great. Thanks.
In the fall, we did send out a letter instead of a postcard, hoping that a different kind of mail would draw people's notice instead of the same thing that you see, every 6 months or so. So we'll probably, do something different in order to try and catch people's attention.
Great, thanks.
And when are we taking the spring round live?
I would say we usually probably put it out in March, send the notice out to try to give people about a 3-week period to turn things in. So sometimes you've seen applications make it to you in May or April. Sometimes it's in June. We kind of try to help people get a complete application. So when it gets to you, it seems to vary quite a bit, but we usually start in that March, for sure no later than April time period. And I think one thing is we'll have to do with this is, again, sometimes we get different levels of the quality of materials submitted. So we try to work with people, but if we have people that are on a timeline for this summer, especially like maintenance grants, that's something you might be able to move ahead pretty quickly on. We'll want to make sure that we're getting complete applications processed into the commission or to the council. And if people aren't really ready, we're going to have to say you need to wait until the next round. So we'll have to try and get things to you in a more prompt manner.
All right. Any other questions? Open up public feedback. Is there anyone that wants to address council on this particular item tonight? Travis?
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, city staff. Thank you for considering this. From the Ames Main Street point of view, we think it's been great working with city staff on looking at the enhancements for this program. We think it's a great next step in the evolution of this, including rear facades, roofing, and maintenance. Really does help building owners who might have already taken advantage of this front-facing facade program to now take advantage of it for other parts of their building. And in addition to, I'd be willing to offer up our services to help promote this to building owners and businesses, as well as help facilitate any kind of meetings or speaking engagements that Benjamin might have. So please consider us a partner in this effort. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, we'll close public input. Any closing questions or comments? Otherwise, I entertain a motion.
I would move we approve the changes to the downtown facade grant program for eligibility and timing.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Vetcher.
Aye.
Edie Hansen.
Aye.
Rollins.
Aye.
Garten.
Aye.
Junk. Aye.
Was it all?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Sorry.
Goes quick when you take some out of my.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item number 19. This is a hearing on text amendment to create townhome building type in Article 4 of the zoning ordinance. And staff has requested that we'll declare the public hearing to be open and entertain a motion to continue the hearing to February 25th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. All right, move on to item number 20, hearing on text amendment modifying public hearing notification requirements.
Yeah, so this item was initiated by staff in November. We had been working with the city clerk on some notification requirements and realized that 2 years ago we had, not that we didn't know we did this, but we knew that we had added publication requirements to more project types in the code, specifically major site development plans, which you see not even maybe 2 to 3 tops in a year, a couple a year. And then the Planning and Zoning Commission had some published notice requirements as well, and they're not an approval body. So city staff and the city clerk, or planning staff and the city clerk's office believed it'd be beneficial to remove this publication requirement. It seems to be the least useful way of noticing the public about specific project actions. As a result of you initiating this change, we worked with the city attorney's office on this, and there ended up being some nuances that weren't anticipated about what you can specify for notice if you're not going to include a publication requirement. So this ordinance got a little bit more involved than first thought. Again, the only things affected by it are really the major site plan and then the planning commission items, the normal ZBA items, the map amendment process, those notification requirements where we have mailed notice, posting notice, and publication requirements, they all remain. So the section that we added, which is this courtesy notice component, it reflects the practice that the city has always had for adding mailed notice to projects and to post on site so the general public could be aware of it in that area. And because of the requirements of hearings and actions, the city attorney's office said we should best structure this as courtesy notices, and staff will continue to do the practice that we have for all of these notices for planning commission items as well as for major site plans. But you will notice that in the code, it does not say staff will do this. It says staff may do this. And clearly our intent and the council's understanding would be that staff would continue with the practice of how we've done these notices for the past 20 years. So we're recommending approval. It's a little different form than I would have thought in November when we came to you, but this does accomplish the goal of removing the publication requirement.
Questions?
So I noticed that the phrase public hearing got removed a lot, and I thought there was some legal definition of public hearing that we needed to have in here. So what happened with that? Because that seems different.
That's part of the structure is if you declare something a hearing, it must have published notice. So
Okay.
by removing the declaration that it's a public hearing, then that opened up a different notification process. So all of the other items that we still notice for are hearings, and they have a publication requirement. That's why we specify the 200-foot notice and the posting for all those other items. The major site plan was the one that is not a required public hearing. In most cities, when we looked, or I shouldn't say most, but the few that I surveyed in the Des Moines area, there is not a hearing requirement. There may not even be notice. It may be courtesy notice like we do, but there's not an official notice requirement as well. So the idea of like site plan reviews being hearings is not common. But many cities, like in Ankeny, every commercial site plan goes to the city council or goes through the planning commission and could go to city council for approval, but there's not a broad notification process. And that's the same for other cities like Waukee and some other the suburban towns where a lot more commercial site plans get processed through the council.
Other questions?
So this is a little tangential, but since we're talking about courtesy notices, then how will council be aware, or does council need to direct when we want those notices to go on if this is approved?
So the only one thing that comes to you is major site plans. So you would not have a way to direct us to do it, except for if you weren't satisfied when it came to you and you paused it and said, go send a notice out, because it's administratively reviewed until it gets scheduled for a council meeting. So you don't initiate that process. There's no preliminary council steps for that. So you wouldn't be able to unless you got to the meeting and you were dissatisfied with the notice process. And then you chose not to review that item and directed staff to send notices out. I think part of our council action forms, we always have an outreach or a notice section. So you would know whether we've done it or not. So if we got here and you see under the notice that staff for some random reason didn't do what is expected, then you would be aware of that as well. So then you could say, well, why did we not do that? Pause it or continue at your choice. But for the Planning and Zoning Commission, again, those are things that we would continue to do as we always have.
Okay. Thank you.
And I'd like to dovetail with Anita's comment. I'm very sensitive to notice issues. It affects people's property rights and due process issues. And I've always been frustrated with the way in which a lot of our municipal notices are done. We give notice the way they did 150 years ago, even though we live in a very different environment in terms of communication. So I'm not suggesting that what we're doing is a great way of communicating. I think we should find alternatives, but I just want to make sure it's clear for us. What you've explained, I think makes sense. I just want to make sure, trying to tease out the law of unintended consequences. Who won't receive notice if we go forward with this?
If staff does what we've always done through the courtesy notice expectation, no direct noticing will change. Posting would still occur. Mailed notice would still occur. The only thing that would not occur is the newspaper publication. So that audience of the general city reading the legal ads in the newspaper who would not know of the project.
Okay. And is there anything on our city website? Do we have a page for public notices that if someone had an interest in finding out what's going on, that they could find those kind of postings?
Not for planning, but you can see the Planning and Zoning Commission agenda, and you can review the items that make it to the Planning and Zoning Commission agenda, but there's no other like project notice page itself. It's really just the Planning Commission agenda page.
So, I mean, I just throw this out, perhaps even just as a placeholder, that it's very inexpensive for us in maintaining our website. We could have a page for notices that we might otherwise publish, but that we would post on that in a fairly easily accessible. I don't want something would be buried 30 pages back, but somewhere that's fairly prominent that would serve a comparable purpose. The readership, the circulation of newspapers nationally is down. And so I think it's incumbent on us to find alternative ways to convey to the community we're serving what we're doing. So I'm not ready to make a motion on that tonight, but it's just as a placeholder for us to consider at some point. Thanks for explaining that.
And you and I talked before, Kelly, just about there was a comment made during the text amendment this further on the agenda tonight, that if we wanted to expand the reach for all different types, this is the time to talk about that, or can we come back at a separate at a different time in terms of 200 is 200 feet appropriate, is 500 feet, or you talked about maybe potentially having a matrix or something for council to have more information to understand what could be provided, or what the implications might be.
So for tonight, the only new number is in relation to the courtesy notices. So the actual notices are not in this ordinance. We couldn't change any mail distance notice other than the courtesy. So if there was an interest in that, I think there is it'd probably be worth a look back at the last 2 years of applications with mailed notice and give you a sense of if you were interested in expanding the radius beyond 200 feet, like what would that mean in terms of costs, in terms of mailings? Time's not a big issue. The process of creating the labels and all of that's not a big deal. I think it's just the postage and the printing costs for the most part. So we could prepare that if there's some idea what people are interested in. It wouldn't be that hard to do a look back on the last 2 years of projects.
And is it your recommendation or preference to be all wrapped into one, or even having two, this one can move forward and then
I would move forward with this because I think it's completely independent of the idea of is 200 feet enough notice by mail.
Yeah.
This is about removing a publication requirement.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, declare the public hearing on this item to be open. Is there anyone who wants to address council on this particular topic? Seeing none, declare the public hearing to be closed.
Can I say something? I didn't get on your list.
I'm sorry.
Can I say something?
Yes, please, Kate. You called me just in time.
Kate Gregory, 803 Kellogg. I just want to say, I think that public notification is important. We had a whole brouhaha over a text amendment because the public, the people who lived in the neighborhood, were not informed and relying on, homeowner associations that only serve social responsibilities, that have no responsibility to the city to pass the word, is a bad way to do it. And Tim Garton's recommendation that you put it on the website is the best thing that you could do, because the public has a right to know. And frankly, right now, there are a lot of people in the neighborhood I live in who feel like the city is not being very transparent with the way they handle their processes. So I think it's a great idea, and I hope you consider it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Anything else? All right, we'll close the public hearing. Any closing comments? Otherwise, entertain a motion.
I would move that we approve the first reading of an ordinance amending the notification requirements.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Edie Hansen.
Aye.
Rollins.
Aye.
Garten.
Aye.
Junk. Aye. Betcher.
Aye.
Thank you. Move on to item number 21. Text amendments, Chapter 29, Article 12, floating zone lots and block design.
So this is the last item of the referral last year from the Ames Economic Development Authority's short-term housing task force request to look at conservation ordinance changes. So you adopted the significant changes on first reading at the last meeting to change your subdivision chapter and establish new standards for the layout of conservation and low impact developments in the Ada Hayden watershed area. In that a package of changes, we did work with how street and block links worked. So for the sake of efficiency and to create conservation areas that are the primary goal rather than street grids, we made those changes, but we knew we needed to come back. Chapter 29 has its own lot and block length standard. So we wanted to come back after we had that approval. So we are changing one section that applies to the FS zones. It's intended with the 660-foot limit that's specified there to encourage pedestrian connectivity when streets are longer than that distance. So we've added a couple of different things to this. One is an exemption just related to conservation subdivisions. So that way, when you're approving a conservation subdivision, you're looking at connectivity, trails, and streets all together at one time. So you're making a decision overall that project makes sense because of the layers of natural elements that are there that might be different than other parts of the city. And then while we were looking at this section, there's long been a fragment of a sentence that is a thorn in the side of every review of this standard because it seems to say two different things. So we are proposing to correct the reference to a walkway between block faces. What we are proposing is it's clear now that it is meant to go through a block and connect to somewhere else. It is not meant to just be the crossing of a street in the middle of a long street. So that was the intent, I believe, all along, even though it does say crosswalk, and then it goes on to say from block face to block face. So we're proposing that clarity to be added with this. Any questions regarding the walkway standard? I'm sorry, we are all asking one other thing. In discussion with one of the developers in town, we asked why outlots weren't more often the placement of these HOA sidewalks, basically, instead of an easement. We as staff think it's better when the HOA is in full control of the property and the walkway and not an easement on the property. And they said, well, it impacts the setbacks. It makes the lots harder to build on, less space to build on. So we're actually putting into this that if an outlot of at least 8 feet is created, we can give a 3-foot setback reduction in acknowledgement that part of that lot area was now put into an HOA lot. So I'm hoping that encourages the developer to pull that off as an easement. I think it's better for the homeowner to not have an easement on their lot and to be able to put that in an HOA lot and give them 3 feet of that 4 feet of space back. And it's fine for zoning, and it should still be fine for building code. The building code will likely assume that's an assumed property line and still allow for fenestration percentages on that wall. So it should be beneficial to everybody without really impacting the buildable area of the lot. So that's a little wrinkle that's being added in here per conversation with the developer.
Questions?
So one minor question, Kelly. So I like this idea in principle, but sometimes the HOAs, they don't stick around very long. So they may be there 10, 20 years. Or do you have any concerns if these are set up as HOA lots, that there will be a problem if the HOA doesn't exist in 20, 25 years? Does that change the score?
I mean, we'll still have easement over it for public use and passage if necessary as a sidewalk. I think I'm more comfortable that the HOA has land assets and they're going to have an asset for a stormwater facility also. So it's not going to just be one sidewalk that requires the HOA to exist. I would be more concerned that the HOA goes away and you just have sidewalks with easements on property and we don't really understand who's responsible for maintaining this sidewalk. What's really the obligation to take care of it, to do any of those things when it's just in an easement.
So how does this change the score then?
It doesn't force it to be in an outlot. We are encouraging developers to create outlots by trying to enhance the usability of the lot with 3 feet or 4 feet less of width to it. So a developer could still do it the way they've always done it, but we're trying to encourage them to put it in an outlot.
Apologies. So if the developer does that, I'm trying to understand, how does that make things better? I'm still not understanding it.
I think so if a sidewalk is splitting a property line with a shared easement on 2 homeowners' properties, who's responsible for the maintenance of that sidewalk? Is it the HOA because it's in an easement for public use? Is it the neighbor on the left, the neighbor on the right? These are issues that are not ever resolved when we do subdivisions. If we put it into a common area lot, it's owned by the HOA. It's clear who's responsible for that facility. In my mind, that's clear now. and it's not a single homeowner's responsibility.
And my only point is that and correct me if I'm wrong, this works as long as you have an HOA. And in my experience, HOAs sometimes go away. The restrictive covenants are allowed to lapse. Nobody wants to be the HOA president. Everyone looks around, nope, I'm not doing it. And the HOA goes away. And so if that happens, then the mechanism for maintenance goes away as well.
Well, the land is, I mean, it's owned by an entity. Are they going to dissolve the entity and sell their property? I have not seen that. I've seen HOAs go away when they don't have assets, absolutely. But in the last 20 years, every subdivision has land assets and obligations for stormwater management that, to me, it's really hard for them to disappear. I haven't seen it yet. I can agree there's the potential for questions that have not yet been asked or answered in regards to the life of a subdivision 30 years from now, or even maybe 10 more years from now when that first set of 21 years of the covenants expire.
And one last question, I promise. So I'm trying to remember where I've seen this in abstracts for other communities. And so I'm thinking the metro area, Ankeny, I'm trying to remember where I've seen this. Have you seen something similar in peer communities?
To have mid-block walkways?
No, midway walkways, but having the HOAs own those.
I would not know that. I don't get into that level of understanding of their subdivision processes and their HOA responsibilities in other communities.
So this is something that we've sort of developed organically in our process. We just haven't seen it out there.
Well, many are in outlots now. Many walkways are in outlots right now. There are times where the builder thinks the lot width doesn't accommodate carving it off, and they want to have space to make up setbacks, and then they put it in easement.
Okay.
But majority of, if they're larger outlots, they definitely put them in there rather than easement.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Any other questions? All right, I declare the public hearing on this item to be open. Is there anyone who wants to address council on this topic? Seeing none, declare the public hearing to be closed. Any closing questions or comments? Otherwise, I entertain a motion.
Move alternative one.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Rollins.
Aye.
Garten.
Aye.
Drunk. Aye. Vetcher.
Aye.
Beatty Hansen.
Aye.
Thank you, Kelly. Move on to item number 22, second reading on text amendment to the conservation subdivision standards of chapter 23 of the municipal code. Is there a motion?
Move on second.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Garten.
Aye.
Drunk. Aye. Vetcher.
Aye.
Beatty Hansen.
Aye.
Rollins.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to item number 23. Council, I got notice from Amber late this afternoon that she just could not make it. She just turned ill, and just want you to, I'm going to have Mark to come up. As you're aware, this item has had a 4-2 vote consistently, and you might have seen Mark, Steve, and I huddling a little bit. He brought to my attention something, so you can explain the situation, what Iowa code says, and also what options, if any, exist for council tonight on this item.
So the Iowa code, it's section 380.4, states very clearly that a passage of an ordinance requires a majority vote of the full council. And that's even if a council member is absent, it still requires 4 votes in our case in order to pass an ordinance. Given that there are 2 votes that have always been no here, that that means that it seems likely that there are only 3 yes votes and therefore not enough to pass this ordinance. So an option is to go ahead and vote on it, and the outcome is the outcome. The other option is to table this and continue it to the next meeting, where there would hopefully be a full council to consider it. Which would require a motion and approval. A motion only has to have a majority of the council members present voting on it. But again, an ordinance requires a majority of the full council, which is 4. So I just want to bring that to your attention, before you vote or take any action on this item.
We did not want to have the motion and then have it end up saying, announce it being failed, and all of a sudden everyone being, surprised by it. That's why I asked Mark to give us I appreciate his bringing it attention. Shaman.
I have a question. For motions to reconsider, do both the mover and the seconder of a motion to reconsider have to have been on the prevailing side
No,
of a
just
vote?
just the person making the motion.
Just the mover of the
Yeah,
motion? Okay.
I mean, you can take a vote this time and plan to do a motion to reconsider at the next meeting. The problem is that has to come from someone who voted on the prevailing side, which,
Sure.
they may not be willing to do. So,
And it can't come from someone who has not voted, for example,
Right.
Amber.
right.
And it would only be the prevailing side of that third vote.
Yes.
You're thinking about if this would fail, you're saying?
Right.
So Mayor, are we able to speak on this matter now?
Sure.
So my encouragement to council, for those who have voted no, we can either kick the can down the road and just do this on another night. I think that you've had the opportunity to express your opposition to this. This is just procedurally just to allow us to bring resolution to this. In my time at council, we've never taken advantage of a council member's illness where we know how they're going to vote to, in essence, seize on that opportunity. So it seems to me, out of courtesy, if the no votes would consent to just passing this, you've made the point on the record, this is just procedurally to let us get this done. Or I can make a motion and we'll just extend it. And it's not changed anything. And we've just delayed the implementation of what's inevitable. So my encouragement is let's just get it done tonight. You sort of made very principled and thoughtful opposition. But if I was in a situation, I feel like I would just want to get it done. So those are my encouragements.
Well,
So-
the only way, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say, I've been on council as long as you have, Tim, and I can't ever remember this circumstance coming up. So, I see this as a unique situation. So I can't draw on past experience. But my vote has not just been cast because of the way it looks. I really disagree with this. So I'm not going to change my vote on it. And I think it's fair to notify you of that. To me, this is a zoning issue that impacts a lot of people in that neighborhood. And I feel strongly that we aren't going about it in the correct way. And so I will continue to vote no. I would be happy to entertain a motion to move it further down the road, but I'm not going to change my vote simply because of this procedural catch-22 that we're in right now.
Okay. Thank you for your expression. Well said, Tim. So is there interest in making a motion or proceeding or calling for the vote on the ordinance?
I move that we continue item number 23. And I don't know, do we have a meeting? Do I have to
Friday.
schedule?
Fridays.
Friday, we have at
Right.
2 o'clock in the afternoon, we have a meeting. There's enough time to put down the agenda then.
Yes.
Okay.
I move that we move item 23 to Friday's meeting.
Second.
Okay. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate your bringing it to our attention. All right, we'll move on to disposition of communications to council. First is a letter from Brian Foltz, Snyder Associates, requesting a platted survey subdivision waiver. Be appropriate to ask staff for a memo.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Next is an email from Spencer Cruz requesting parking to be allowed on one side of Suncrest Drive west of Cedar. Appropriate to ask staff for a memo or place on a future agenda.
Memo for the traffic engineer.
Okay,
So moved.
for memo.
Memo.
Traffic engineer.
Okay, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. And third is a request from NCAA branch president Moses Ward requesting city sponsorship for the 2025 Freedom Fund banquet. And just go ahead.
Well, we've done this before, so I think we should put
Do
it
it.
on the agenda. And I don't know how much time we have left. How much time we have, do you know?
If this was on for Friday as well, that'd be plenty of time.
Friday?
Mhm.
Okay. Is there a motion to put this on Friday's agenda?
I would move that we put this on Friday's agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. All right, we'll move on to report of governing body, Discover Ames.
Discover Ames met on Thursday, January 16th. The purpose of this meeting was update on the normal occupancy of hotels, and our hotels are doing well, and also a review of the 2024 goal accomplishments and very impressive work that Discover Ames is doing. I'm served on this in the past. I'm glad to return to this board. Nothing else tonight.
Thank you. Ames Regional Economic Alliance.
I was ill and missed the meeting.
Okay.
I went. There was a good presentation by, was it Justice Jones, I think his name is, he's director of student or athlete relations at Iowa State. They have a STORM program. That was fascinating, really neat program to kind of, I guess, educate students about how to be good citizens and good, transition to life after football, right, basically, too. So anyway, great presentations. It was my first meeting of that board, and I really enjoyed it. So.
Good. Great.
Yeah, I just got it.
All right, on the Story County Emergency Management, met, approved the budget, and really they had, most of the work had already been done ahead of time. And all I say is that there's really great leadership on the part of so many of the mayors and Story County officials to be prepared for anything that might be coming up. And I did bring up, is there an opportunity to talk about what we could do for homeless shelter in terms of a county-wide conversation? So that'll be something we'll be talking about. Story County Emergency Management does not staff, would not be staffing a homeless shelter, but they're more or less for organizing and providing resources and coordination. So transit.
We had a very short meeting in January. The main item was about the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program and approving that the transit director file that grant application to the FTA.
And our second Iowa State student government representative was appointed last week, so they will be getting all set with City Hall soon.
Perfect.
Very good. All right, council comments. Gloria, I'll start with you tonight.
Today, you may have heard that the federal government has suspended funding of grants and other assistance for the time being.
The judge blocked that too.
Yes, but I think that for the future, it may be good for us to know what monies we have coming in from the federal government and what those monies are going to fund. And so I don't know, Steve, does council need to make a motion about that?
Yeah.
So I would like to move
Finance
that.
director.
What's that?
It'd be the finance director to prepare a report.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we ask the finance director to prepare a report for us that shows us where our federal money is going within the budget.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried.
I believe that for those who are interested, Richard Deo's funeral is this Saturday.
Thank you.
Nothing for me tonight. Thank you.
Anything for you?
I've got a couple of things. I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but during our retreat, we talked about the
Yes, go ahead.
possibility of a communications engagement workshop with former Mayor Sharon Weston Broom. There is the opportunity, we do now have a full proposal, and my suggestion would be that it would be a working a lunch meeting, like 11:30 for 90 minutes on Friday, February the 21st, if there are enough council members available to make that work. So you could be there? Okay. Is there a
I
general?
think so, yeah.
Okay, I think we have enough to make a
Good.
go of it.
All right.
So, all right.
We'll plan on
then,
that. Is it 11:30 to 1 or
Right.
or what, noon to 1:30?
11:30 to 1, and we'll just have people pick up lunch and
You'll have lunch.
start,
We'll have
start
lunch here,
the
yeah,
session.
yeah.
And we'll have lunch here. Cost is $1,000 for her to come in, so.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
She had a very impressive proposal and covered a lot of ground that are priorities for the council. So it'll be a very good work session.
Mhm.
And that will be an open meeting, by the way, too. So we'll probably either meet in here or in 235, but if the public wants to come, that's their prerogative. But it'll be basically just us listening, talking, and
Listening and talking.
interacting.
Mhm.
Good.
And then I think I had sent something to council last week with the idea of setting aside some funding. So we've had a lot of discussions at the end of 2024 about those individuals in our community that are unhoused. And even though we have set aside quite a bit of funding, the asset funders meeting that we had last week, if council approves, we have about $950,000 that will be committed next year that will include everything from emergency sheltering to food, legal, rent, utility, mental health, physical health, and transportation. And another $43,000 that will be sequestered for use for food insecurity, housing, and childcare. But even with that, it does seem that it would be wise for us to consider setting aside some funds so that when we receive the feedback from the study that we've commissioned, that we are prepared to move to perhaps fill any gaps that that study identifies, or perhaps some new wrinkle that happens during the year that we're not scrambling trying to find some other funding to address that, or that as the study goes forward about what service agencies are here and who's doing what, if some gap is identified there, that we have some funds available that we can draw on. This is not an issue of, well, if we set it aside, we should spend it more. If we set it aside, then we have some specific resources that we can go to. And so my proposal is that we look at up to $100,000 being set aside for that. That's where I'd like to start the conversation, but that's my thought, is that if that study identifies some things or we identify some gaps, that we don't have to wait to move on that. We would have some set aside resources.
How is that different from the council priorities fund that we already have?
I think it's more just making sure that that is protected just for that. It can come from that, but I kind of.
Yeah, I think all I need from you is how much do you want to set aside? And then I'll come back with the recommended source, if that's okay. It could be that, it could be other sources, right?
Mhm.
And the point is, it may not be used, a fraction may be used,
Right.
or
Or
anything
yeah,
up to that
up
amount.
to a dollar amount.
Just trying to provide some
Mhm.
funding approach early on, essentially.
Mhm.
Would this be a motion to put it then on a future agenda?
Yeah, you have to make the final decision during budget time. I think you'll do it at wrap-up time, won't you?
Okay.
You wanted decision-making.
I think, Nia, your point was just to try and talk about it ahead of time versus
Right.
trying to do it on the night when we're trying to get all the numbers put together, essentially.
Yeah, I just didn't know in terms of what we're voting, if we vote for
Mhm.
something right now, it wouldn't be the allocation because we can't vote for that, but it would be to put it on a future
Or
agenda.
on the
Or
budget.
on the
I'd
budget.
probably put it on the wrap-up session, right?
I mean, it's nothing that we have to, we're not making decisions. Can't we just sort of bookmark this as part of your proposal during our budget process?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I just
whether you
wanted
want
to
the
bring it up
100,000,
now rather than waiting until
You don't need a motion.
budget decision night.
You don't need a motion for that, or you want a motion for that?
Do we need to ask like staff to put together a potential source for the
Mhm.
100,000?
Yeah, just so you know, though, you agree with the 100,000 and put together a potential source, then I'll be ready for it. If there's a majority vote for that amount and that topic.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
I would move that we would identify a source for up to $100,000 to be used to address community challenges related to those in our community that may be unhoused
Second.
For the February 11th wrap-up.
for the
budget wrap-up
February
session.
11th wrap-up session.
So not voting on allocating that money at this time?
No.
But just on asking you to find a source to propose.
You will then have to
Right.
vote on it or not.
Propose.
That's what you do, right?
Right.
And then in the future, they would have to vote again to spend it for certain
To spend
things.
it.
Is that
Oh,
correct?
yes, that's
Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's correct.
Okay. Those in favor?
Because I really don't know that we've ever done anything quite like this.
Mhm.
And so just feels really odd that we would vote for something without knowing any more information than we do. And so my vote for this should only be seen as just to create a placeholder for discussion, but $100,000, we want to kick the tires and make sure we're spending public dollars in a
I agree.
beneficial manner. So I don't want to communicate that that's what this is at all.
Right.
So it's just to create a placeholder.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
I think
Correct.
that's well said. I think that's what you were saying too, Brown. We're not
Mhm.
Voting to allocate tonight, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Anything else?
Now, were you going to?
I certainly going to pick it up.
Oh, you're going to pick that one up?
Yep.
Are you also the 200 feet policy piece going to?
Nope, you can go ahead on that one.
Okay. So in our conversation today, we were asking about the notification piece. And so per the conversation with Kelly, I would like to propose that we ask for a memo related to the various notifications that are made to the community for the various text amendments that are now represented, and there's no rush. So I don't know how to say that, but it's not urgent, but so that council is aware of those notifications, how broadly they're made and how frequently and how that's happened over the last couple of years.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I think there was more than just text amendments. There was actually other code potential changes too, right? Zoning ordinance.
That's true.
He talked about the fact that he had like 7, 8, 9 different categories. He could go ahead and show what currently exists in terms of notification.
Yes.
And so he could pull that pretty quickly. And then also he could talk about the last 2 years, look at, what it is. And the point is that have more information, you can decide, do you want to do more on this, or is it really not necessary information? That makes sense?
It does.
Okay, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. All right.
I wanted to make sure that there was some response, and I apologize. I didn't.
Yes, Tommy.
Tommy,
Yeah.
is it Lenz? I think
Lens or lens?
Lenz.
He's out there.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
he's still here.
Mr. Lenz. This is a community with a wide range of people here, and many students, many visiting scholars, and I can only presume that if people are here through the university, their status is, with respect to the immigration status, is already clarified before they get here. So I hope that people who are affiliated with Iowa State don't have any concerns. Now, what happens with respect to coming from their respective countries, that's sort of a different matter. But there's not a potential for deporting people who are lawfully here. And we've received a handful of emails, and there have been a lot of posting on social media that City of Ames should do things to try to thwart efforts to remove people. And that's the role of the federal government, to make those decisions. And I don't know that we would have a role in those kind of matters. Then I wanted to also dovetail, Steve, is this an appropriate place, an idea dealing with having a web page on our website with respect to public notices? Is that something that I could make a motion that we could explore, maybe with Susan or legal, to see if there could be a page added to our city website for just an alternative place for posting public notices?
Susan, you want to speak to that? It'd be easy to do. I think it would be. Assuming people have access to computers and things like that, remember?
Yeah, it would be a really easy thing to add a page on our website, but just keep in mind that we'll be launching a new website in the new next probably 6 to 8 weeks. So its position might move a little bit, but just adding a page and feeding it with documents is not a big deal.
People have to go to it, you know?
Would it also be possible to maybe, like the city has those email check boxes that you could add? Could we add a checkbox for those?
Yeah, we could absolutely make it an e-notification category as well. So
Have to give their-
if people wanted
give their
to have
email
those
address again.
gone right to their email address, they could get them that way
Yep.
as well.
Be real easy.
So I would move that we would ask staff to add a page to our website that would facilitate public notices. And I love Rachel's suggestion that if people want to request email notifications of those notices, they could sign up for that.
Second.
I just want to clarify, because I haven't talked to staff. Are there other kind of notices you're thinking about? Are they related to planning? And there could be other notices that I haven't thought about yet. It could be, what other kind of public notices do we give out? I can't think right now. You meant any kind of notice? That's a broad range, or do you mean relationship to what Kelly does? I have to think about the other notices, possible notices.
We have construction notices on there already. We have press releases on there already. I don't have the entire, city council meetings are on there already.
That's not really is that what you mean, everything? It's fine, it's easy. Instead of public notice required, not by the same thing as planning, but.
Yeah, and I, if in doing this, you have questions, maybe need clarification, then staff can always come back and we can refine this. But I would leave it broadly as public notices that we would be giving.
Okay, Susan?
Okay. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Finally, wanted to voice appreciation for Kevin Burke's recommendation with respect to evaluating the feasibility of a recreation center. My hope is that within the near future, the council will be able to take a physical field trip to the facility in Nevada. And Kevin recommended looking at the website. I believe it was, I'm forgetting another one in the metro area.
We were in Norwalk, we visited.
Norwalk, yep, Norwalk. And so I will be encouraging support of staff's proposal going forward with a feasibility study in the next budget. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. Rachel?
Nothing for me tonight.
Emily, welcome back.
Thank you. Okay, so we filled the other student government position for Ride, and the local affairs committee is working on the joint meeting agenda. We hope to have the initial draft to you guys by February. And I think we learned a lot from the first meeting, so I'm looking forward to this next one in March. Another update is I have a potentially interested party in the Property Maintenance and Appeals Board. So I will be connecting with someone on more information for that, and there will be hopefully more people interested in joining external boards and committees, because I've been giving them a lot of information about it. And then this Saturday on the 1st is when Iowa State student government campaigns for executive and senatorial positions start. Martin Quinn and I remain fully committed to our responsibilities in serving our Iowa State Ames community. This being said, I may not be aware if there are individual campaigns that reach out to anyone from city staff or anyone on council, but feel free to ask me about any of that and I can do my best to answer.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mayor, there's one other calendar item I wanted to bring people's attention to, and that you made me think about with Iowa State. On Monday, February 3rd, is the George Washington Carver Day program at the Great Hall at 5:30. This is a terrific program. If people are interested in that, it's a great part of our legacy here in Ames and Iowa State. And I attended this last year and thought it was terrific, and I plan on attending this coming Monday, 5:30, Great Hall.
Thank you. I'll go back to Tommy's question. We have gotten a few emails. They've been I copied council on them in terms of some responses. Mark, can I ask you just to put you on the spot, just what can the city legally do, if anything, with respect to immigration? And I think that Tommy recognizes that there's probably not much, but maybe there are. There's a state Senate bill that was passed, in 2018. Like Senate File 481 that was specific on that in terms of sanctuary city and whatever. So can you just comment and brief on that?
Essentially the city really can't do anything in terms of immigration. It's federal. It's a federal law. It's, the Constitution sets the federal government, controls immigration policy. There's a bill passed in the legislature that was, enjoined by the federal court, and the federal appeals court just upheld that this last week. So, there's really not a lot the city can do in terms of immigration one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a federal issue.
Thank you.
On the other hand, though, we do have a city resolution.
Right, which I was going to bring up, Gloria. Thank you. In December of 2016, the council did pass resolution reaffirming the city's commitment to the values of equity, fairness, inclusion, and justice for the city of Ames. One option is we could take that and once again reaffirm that if council is interested. It does not say they're going to defend. We're going to basically make sure nothing happens to people. It's basically just affirming our commitment to welcoming all individuals. Tommy, I don't know if that would be anything of more reaffirming. We're very sympathetic to the situation. And I will pass on too, is that our police chief has weighed in and they don't ask, for example, what people's immigration status is. They try and really build relationships with all of the people in our community. I think all of us probably have friends who are immigrants and are either here studying or working, very sympathetic to the plight. But our hands are completely tied as a city, and so is our law enforcement. And so I think I've had 2 or 3 emails asking about, well, since you have it, that's encouraging, but can you, reaffirm it? We could. It basically wouldn't be adding anything or taking anything away from it. It's just more or less, the council could, pass that resolution. So if that's of interest, we can certainly put that on the next, on an agenda, and then it would be, to the vote of the council versus a mayor proclamation, and then it could be reposted again on the website. But again, I would not propose changing any wording. I think it's really well worded. But I don't know, it's I think the best we can do to send a message, and then it could get put on Facebook or other social media platforms. But if council's interested in that, I would entertain a motion to that effect.
I would move that we reaffirm that 2016 resolution.
Okay, is there a second?
A second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll get it on a future agenda, and it'll just be a copy, and I'm sure Susan or whoever in our PIO office can get that out, just saying that we're reaffirming that. And I think that would be, well received by the community. So appreciate your coming, Tommy, and sitting through the entire meeting to the end to hear that. And I guess this is very uncommon, but is that a sage? I'm asking you a question that we normally don't do at council. Is that any affirming or encouraging, or is it more or less, I figure that's all you could do? Okay, all right. Again, thank you for speaking on behalf of those that are your colleagues and at Iowa State, and it's a very challenging time we're in right now. Thank you. All right, with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I have one more thing. I'm sorry.
Okay, just because you're Iowa State, go ahead.
Thank you. So local affairs and finance will see the student government asset allocations this week, and so will Senate. So that's just pretty much all I have extra, but I just wanted to let you guys know.
And I made fun of you, and I remember one more thing. Board and commission applications are still open, and there are a number of slots that are available. So I encourage everybody to go to the City of Ames website, and those are posted. Applications are taken electronically, and our cutoff is the end of this week. So if people are interested, please do that.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
All right, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
You're adjourned. Thank you.